Imagine an entire civilization dedicating centuries to carving coordinates, some stretching for miles into the earth. Yet those intricate designs remain utterly invisible from any terrestrial vantage point. These aren't just symbols, they are colossal messages engineered with a precision that defies their ancient origins, speaking to an audience that could only perceive them from the heavens. The most disturbing truth about the Nazca Lines is not what they are, but who they were for. In this deep dive, you will confront the staggering reality of these monumental desert etchings, uncover the officially documented facts of their discovery and construction, and then, crucially, grapple with the baffling evidence that shatters conventional explanations. We will examine the most prominent theories put forth by researchers, revealing why each, in its own way, falls short of accounting for the impossible truth of Peru's sky canvas. For over 2,000 years, the Nazca Plateau in southern Peru has held a profound secret, etched into its stark, arid surface. This desolate expanse, covering nearly 400 square miles between the Nazca and Palpa rivers, is home to one of history's most enigmatic archaeological sites, the Nazca Lines. For centuries, these enormous geoglyphs lay largely unnoticed by the outside world, save for local inhabitants, until the advent of flight. It was only from the air, in the 1920s and 1930s, that their true scale and intricate designs became apparent, revealing a hidden world waiting above. The formal scientific discovery is often attributed to the American historian Paul Kosok, who, while flying over the region in 1939, observed a massive figure resembling a bird. Kosok called them the largest astronomy book in the world. However, the tireless work of German mathematician and archaeologist Maria Reichai, beginning in 1940 and continuing for over 5 decades, truly brought the lines to global attention. Reichai dedicated her life to mapping, measuring, and protecting these immense figures, living in a small house near the plains and meticulously documenting every line and shape, often using a ladder to gain even a slight elevated perspective. Her extensive research established much of what we officially understand today. These geoglyphs were created primarily by 2 distinct but related ancient cultures, the Paracas, who initiated some of the earliest designs, and later the Nazca people, who thrived in the region from around 200 BCE to about 700 CE. The technique they employed was remarkably simple, yet its application was monumental. The Nazca removed the reddish-brown iron oxide-coated pebbles from the desert floor, exposing the lighter, yellowish-gray clay soil beneath. This created shallow trenches, typically 10 to 15 centimeters deep, and anywhere from 30 centimeters to several meters wide. These exposed lighter lines contrast sharply with the darker surface, making them visible from a great height. The incredibly dry, windless, and stable climate of the Nazca Desert has acted as a natural preserver, keeping these delicate lines intact for millennia, despite minimal erosion. The figures themselves are diverse, ranging from astonishingly straight lines that traverse miles of terrain to perfect geometric shapes like triangles, trapezoids, and spirals, and hundreds of intricate zoomorphic and anthropomorphic designs. Among the most famous are the hummingbird, stretching nearly 100 meters, the monkey with its spiraling tail, the spider, meticulously rendered, the condor, and a distinct human-like figure sometimes called the astronaut, positioned on a hillside. There are also less dramatic but equally complex designs, including trees and hands, abstract patterns, and vast areas crisscrossed by simple, straight lines. Officially, these lines are believed to have served a range of purposes, from astronomical calendars marking solstices and equinoxes, to ritual pathways for sacred ceremonies, or even elaborate maps relating to water sources in a parched land. But here is the profound question that has haunted researchers for 80 years. How did a culture without the ability to ascend higher than a ladder manage to craft such impossibly precise, mile-long images that are only coherent when viewed from hundreds or even thousands of feet in the air? Consider the sheer scale. A line stretching for 9 miles across varying terrain, maintaining absolute straightness, deviating by mere feet over its entire length. How was this surveyed? Picture the construction of the hummingbird with its intricate wings and tail feathers. If you are on the ground, removing pebbles and digging trenches, you have no way to verify the accuracy of your work. You are, in essence, drawing blindly on a canvas you cannot fully see. This is not just a challenge. It is a fundamental impossibility for ground-level artists aiming for aerial precision. Think about the basic physics of perspective. To draw a perfectly proportioned spider figure that spans over 100 feet and have it look correct from 500 feet up requires an understanding of inverse perspective distortion that is staggeringly advanced for a Bronze Age culture. Yet there are no documented records, no archaeological remnants of observation towers, hot air balloons, or any other aerial vehicle that the Nazca people could have used. There are no large settlement sites indicating a massive, organized effort akin to pyramid building, where thousands of workers would reside. The Nazca Lines aren't built. They are drawn, etched with a delicate touch, implying individual efforts rather than a massive infrastructure project. The very nature of their construction, shallow trenches, means they are not designed to be walked upon extensively without degradation, which directly contradicts theories of them being ceremonial pathways. This isn't about crude drawings that generally resemble something from above. These are geometrically perfect, often utilizing complex mathematical ratios. A report from the National Geographic Society in the 1970s highlighted the baffling exactitude of the trapezoids, often thousands of feet long, perfectly symmetrical, and aligned with incredible accuracy. This is a level of engineering that modern surveying equipment might struggle to replicate on such a vast scale, let alone without a single aerial reference point. What kind of communication demands an aerial vantage point? Archaeologists and scientists have offered several compelling theories over the decades, attempting to bridge the gap between ancient capability and aerial necessity, yet each one, when scrutinized, presents its own set of unanswered questions. The astronomical calendar or ritual pathways theory, most famously championed by Maria Reiche and Paul Kosok, posits that many lines align with celestial events, the rising and setting of the sun at solstices, the position of the moon, or specific star constellations. The animal figures might represent celestial bodies or serve as part of an elaborate ritual calendar to predict seasons for agriculture. Proponents point to observed alignments between certain lines and specific astronomical occurrences. However, while some correlations exist, many lines and figures show no discernible astronomical significance. More critically, even if they were an astronomical calendar, it still doesn't explain why such a calendar needed to be a colossal landscape painting only visible from the sky. Why not a smaller, ground-level observatory, which is far easier to construct and utilize? The sheer effort for something so impractical from a terrestrial perspective remains unexplained. Another significant theory is the water ritual or irrigation map hypothesis, supported by researchers like Johann Reinhard and Donald Prue. Given the Nazca Desert's extreme aridity, water was life. This theory suggests that the lines and figures were part of rituals to appease water deities, or perhaps even functioned as a symbolic map indicating underground water sources, aqueducts, or areas where rain was likely to fall. Some lines do appear to point towards ancient pukios, spiral-shaped wells, or seasonal riverbeds. But this theory, too, struggles with the aerial perspective. Why create massive, intricate animal figures visible only from above to signify water sources that are quite clearly visible and utilized on the ground? And why would the vast network of geometric lines, some miles long, represent irrigation channels when no physical connection or functional purpose to actual water distribution has ever been found for the majority of them? The symbolism is often too abstract and the scale too grand for a practical map. A more recent proposal, the shamanic or pilgrimage theory, suggests the lines were ritual pathways used in spiritual journeys or during trance states, perhaps to communicate with ancestor spirits or deities. Gary Urton of Harvard University has explored connections between the lines and Andean cosmology. The idea is that walking the lines induced a spiritual experience. However, this again fails to account for the overhead perspective. If the purpose was to walk them, why design them to be viewed from above? Many lines are also very narrow or end abruptly, not ideal for a processional path. Furthermore, there's little archaeological evidence of large-scale pilgrimage activity directly associated with the lines themselves, such as ceremonial offerings along their length. And this is where conventional understanding often falls silent. Finally, the most controversial, yet for many, the most direct explanation: the ancient astronaut theory, popularized by figures like Erich von Däniken. This theory posits that the Nazca Lines were created either by or under the direct influence of extraterrestrial visitors. The landing strip appearance of some trapezoidal shapes, the astronaut figure on the hillside, and crucially, the undeniable fact that the designs are best or only seen from the air, are central to this idea. It directly addresses the "who was it for?" question by suggesting an audience that possessed aerial capability. While compelling in its logic for explaining the inexplicable, the theory lacks concrete physical evidence of alien intervention, such as alien artifacts or direct historical accounts from the Nazca people themselves describing contact. It remains outside mainstream archaeology, not for a lack of explaining the aerial view, but for the extraordinary and unproven implications it carries about humanity's past. Think about what that implies. The Nazca Lines stand as a silent, terrifying testament to a past we barely comprehend. They force us to confront the possibility that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge, technology, or perhaps even a profound connection to entities far beyond our current understanding. This isn't merely about finding a new theory. It's about the unsettling realization that the linear progression of human history we cling to might be fundamentally flawed. These desert figures challenge the very limits of our perception, suggesting a different, more complex, and perhaps more humbling truth about our place in the universe. They whisper of an intelligence that shaped our world in ways we are only just beginning to grasp, shaking the foundations of what you believed was real. We have peeled back a layer of the impossible, witnessing the raw, documented mystery of the Nazca Lines, a legacy etched for eyes unseen. But the journey into such profound enigmas has only just begun. There are more layers to peel back, more forgotten truths waiting to be unearthed, truths that promise to shatter even more of what you thought you knew. The universe is far stranger, far more ancient, and far more connected than you can possibly imagine. Prepare yourself for the next revelation.